I want to introduce you to one of the most amazing young ladies you'll ever meet. She's not much older than you. In fact, she graduated from high school at Clinton.
Is this on?
A couple of weeks
Okay,
ago.
thank you.
Yet, this lady climbs mountains. She coaches softball. She plays softball. And she's been through a lot in life. I happen to, and well, several of us have the honor of knowing her Aunt Connie. Those who've been here for 3-4 camps know Connie is Nurse Connie for our 3-4 camps. And her grandmother, great-grandmother?
Great-grandma.
Great-grandmother is one of the people who goes to the church that I came from, a lot of people in not that came from. This lady, she'll tell you her story. I'm going to tell it to you. But please welcome Carmen Bohannan.
So like Jerry said, I'm Carmen. I'm 18 years old, graduated from Clinton in May.
That's my birthday.
May's your birthday? Cool. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my accident, how I lost my leg, life after that, so on and so forth. So before that, I'll give a little backstory. Growing up, I was raised in a Christian household. Don't ever remember a time that we didn't go to church every Sunday. I was raised Baptist, always have been, always will be. Life was pretty easy for me growing up until high school. Never really had a lot of trauma, drama, problems, nothing like that. Have a really great supportive family. So I don't have much to complain about. Now, high school wasn't always easy for me. All the old folks will tell you that high school is the best years of your life, and that's a lie. My freshman year wasn't bad. I was trying to fit in, find my people, find where I belonged. I joined FFA, best choice I ever made, well, top 3. Freshman year was cool. Sophomore year sucked. Sophomore slump is a thing, and it is bad. Junior year was okay. Senior year was okay, but never really had anything great happen to me in high school. So my senior year, 2 days after my junior year ended, actually, 2 days into my summer break, me and my dad were in our front yard spraying weeds in an orchard because one day he decided he wanted to live off the land and become half Amish. I don't know, he's kind of weird, but so we're spraying weeds in this orchard that's never produced any fruit. And you have to get fresh water, like from a pond, for this herbicide that we were putting in. So we go down to the pond, fill up the sprayer with pond water, dirty pond water, put the sprayer in the back of the Ranger. We're driving to the orchard, which is like a stone's throw away, like from me to the white fridge back there. Not a far drive. So we drive to the orchard. He stops and drops me off and tells me to get all the spraying done. Well, I walk to the back of the Ranger, sprayer's not there, fell out. Well, now my dad's mad. So he angrily puts a little too much pressure on the gas pedal, turned a little too sharp, Ranger flips on top of me. He falls on top of me, Ranger's on top of my leg, completely crushed it. I'll let you do all the imagining that you want, but it was not a pretty scene. I mean, you could see straight through it. Both bones in my leg were completely shattered. I lost about 3 centimeters of my bones somewhere in my yard. It took them 3 days to find it, but they did find it. Hopefully a leg grows soon. But so we immediately called 911, obviously. First responders were at the scene before we were even off the phone with them. Put a tourniquet on me. Still to this day, top 3 worst pains was putting a tourniquet on my leg. That was horrendous. But after the wreck, and I'm sitting there on the ground in the middle of this big issue, my dad's head is gushing blood all over me. My foot's upside down, leg's broken. It's a bad deal. I'm sitting there, and all I can bring myself to say is, Jesus saved me, because I knew that this was far out of the doctor's hands at this point. So the ambulance gets there. They put me on a stretcher, and they're like, girl, there ain't nothing we can do. And I'm like, okay, cool, ship me off. So they put us both, me and my dad, in a life flight helicopter, and we flew to Research Hospital in Kansas City, in the ghetto of Kansas City. And so I spent 20 days there on the trauma floor, which is double ghetto, and had quite the experience. So my first surgery, I had 6 surgeries in the hospital, 1 surgery afterwards. So my first one was the day I landed. It was an emergency surgery. They rushed me in, cut my clothes off, put a bunch of IVs in me and whatnot. I was super doped up, so I don't remember much of this, but went into my first surgery. They put in a rod and screw, tried to sew up as much skin as I had left. Went well. Got out of surgery. They rolled me out of the elevator onto my floor where my room was. I'm surrounded immediately by tons of family, friends, and family, and probably had 35 people there. So I asked my Uncle Jeff Falconberry, some of you might know him, some of you might not, he's a pastor at Souls Harbor. Great guy. I asked him to pray over me because I knew this was going to be a long journey. So he prayed over me. All my family stayed there. It was like 11 o'clock when I was out of surgery at night. All my family stayed there till I fell asleep at like 2 in the morning. So super great support system from day one. Super grateful for that. So that was my surgery 1. Surgery 2 was a few days later. They thought I was healing fine. They thought my body was adapting fine. Deep down, I knew it wasn't. I could just feel that this wasn't right. This wasn't where I'm called to be. This just wasn't my end game. So about 4 days later, they're like, we're going to send you home. And I'm like laughing in their face because the smell of my broken leg was so awful. Like, think of the worst smell you've ever smelled, and if you think that's bad, make it worse. And that's about what it was. Like, my room was unbearable. So they unwrap it and try to change it one last time before they send me home. And they're like, this isn't right. Well, yeah, I could have told you that, and I'm not a nurse. So that night, my vitals dropped like super bad. Like, I was super high fever. I had low like white blood cell counts. I don't really know what that means, but apparently I had it. Super sick. So at about 11 o'clock that night, they rolled me into an emergency CT scan, which isn't fun, and found out I had an infection in my leg, which everyone but me saw that coming. So that was cool. And so that's not a good deal, because they told me that night that I was about 48 hours away from that infection becoming septic, and once you become septic, you die. So that was cool. And so then the next morning, I was rushed into an emergency surgery, and it was a surgery where I had to lay on my stomach, which was odd, because they knock you out when you're on your back, and then they roll you over, which I didn't know I was on my stomach until I woke up. And it was like, I couldn't eat for like 2 days, because like my throat was like, hurt so bad. It's a long story. Anyways, surgery 2, they tried to cut out all the infection, and they put a wound vac in, which is basically just a sponge that they put in place of your skin, and it sucks up infection and bad blood. So put that in, cool, whatever. I met with a new surgeon after that from the burn unit. She specialized in super damaged skin. Her name was Dr. Garcia, super sweet lady, love her to death. She even went on vacation and called my hospital room number on her wedding vacation to check in on me. Super great lady. So my surgery 3 was with her, and her goal was to go in and put a skin substitute, like a fake skin, to see how my body would adapt to that, because I didn't have enough skin to make it work. So she went in there to do that. After setback after setback after setback, here I am again with a setback. Surgery 3 was a fail. Didn't work. They found more infection, had to cut it out, placed the wound back in. And at this point, you could see straight through my leg. Like, you could see the bed underneath my leg. So in my mind, I never thought that amputation was something I'd have to consider, because at the age of 17, you never think, I'm going to have to cut my leg off. Just not something that most people go through. So that thought never crossed my mind. So this surgery was a fail, super upset, super bummed. I felt completely hopeless. At that point, prayer felt like the only thing that was keeping me going. It was the only thing I found hope in, because I knew that God had a plan for me. So a couple days later, me and my family were sitting in the hospital room with me. That morning, all my surgeons, both my surgeons and a bunch of my nurses came in, and they told me they were going to have to transfer me. They were going to have to give me plastic surgery, fake skin grafts from my back. They're going to have to take muscles from my ribs, muscles from my leg to fix my other leg. And I was like, listen here, guys. I do not want to look like my grandma's patch quilt to fix my leg that I'll never be able to walk on again. Not what I wanted. But they were bound determined to do it, so I was so drugged up that I didn't really know what I was agreeing to, so I was like, yeah, sure, do it. So that night in the hospital room, it was just my family, me, my 2 parents, and my 2 siblings. I'm the middle child, unfortunately. And my dad made a joke about just cutting it off, because you got to joke to get the mood up sometimes. So he made a joke and was like, I can just cut it off. I'm like, you're onto something. So we're sitting there, we're talking about amputation. It's like 1 in the morning at this point, like super late at night. We're making phone calls to people from my hometown that we know have prosthetics, have gone through amputation, trying to get the ups and downs, the pros and cons, to see if it's really worth it. From the second that joke was brought up, I kind of knew this is what I wanted to do. Like, there was no going back after this. Like, I felt peace for the first time, and I know that wherever peace is present is where the Holy Spirit is moving. So I kind of knew from the first time that joke was made that this is what I was going to do, but I wanted to learn more about it anyways. So we called a bunch of people, called a lady who is now my physical therapist. Her name's Miss Jessie. She saw the pictures of it, like, on the scene of the wreck, and she told my dad, which I didn't know this until about a month ago, she told my dad, yeah, she's not keeping that leg, which I wish someone would have told me that, because that would have made my life easier, whatever. And so, called a bunch of people, got the ups and downs. Nobody sugarcoated anything for me, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. And even through all the negatives they told me, which wasn't much, I knew that, yeah, I want to cut it off, chop this thing off, do it. So the next morning, I met with someone called a patient advocate. She's from Hanger, which is a place that does prosthetic legs. And she came into my room, she took off her leg, which was really weird, showed me all the pieces and parts of it, showed me how cool it was, told me all the things she could do now. She was climbing mountains, she was rock climbing, she was like running marathons, which like I couldn't do that with 2 real legs, so I'm like, good for you, girl. But she was like, you're gonna be unstoppable, cut it off. And I'm like, okay. So that kind of solidified my decision. I was like, yep, we're chopping it. So that night, well that afternoon I guess, I had my family in the room, my family from Wisconsin in the room, I had my boyfriend and his family in the room. I mean, I had more people in this room that could fit. Like, we had people in the hallway. It was overflowing. And my surgeon came in, and I kind of told him, he was telling me about how they got me plans to be shipped off to the next hospital to do this next arts and crafts project on me. And I'm like, look, dude, I'm just going to be honest. I was like, I've really been thinking and praying, and I want quality of life. I'm 17 years old, and at this rate, if you save my leg, keyword if, I will never be able to use it again, and I was well aware of that. So I told him, I was like, I'm looking for quality of life. My biggest goal in life, my biggest dream, I guess you could say, is to be a mother. And I didn't want to have to be the mother that sat on the porch and watched her kids play in the yard because I was physically unable. Not what I wanted. I would rather be dead than to have to waste my life away like that. And I told him that. And I'm a pretty honest person, if you couldn't tell, so I kind of told him a lot worse stuff than that, but kind of told him that's what I was looking for, that's what I wanted out of this, and I was like, I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm chopping this thing off. If you don't want to do it, find me someone that does. And he was like, Carmen, you are the most mature person I've ever met at the age of 17 to be able to make that decision to cut off a limb. And I was like, cool, now when can you do it? So I told him that on a Wednesday night. Friday afternoonish, about 1 o'clock, I was rolled down to the OR, and they're like, it's time, and I was like, oh God. At that point in time, I was ready to take it all back. I did not. It started to hit me that I was actually about to chop a leg off, and I was like, oh boy, this is a little scary. So I was super nervous. I was like shaking frantically, super nervous, crying, which I'm not a big crier, but I was crying. And they came down there. So an amputation is a 2-part surgery. First surgery, they just straight up cut it off, nothing else. Next surgery, they close it with your skin. So I'm going down to my first surgery, and this lady comes in, and she's like, I can tell you're nervous. And I'm like, yeah, I'm about to cut my leg off, and I'm 17, like, chill. And she pulls out this shot from her pocket, and she's like, this will make you not care. And I'm like, are you sure this lady's a nurse, or am I getting shot with, like, fentanyl or something? But I didn't really care. I was like, shoot me. So she done shot me, and she was right. In 2 minutes, I didn't care, and I had peed the bed. So it was quite the experience, but it was great. And my one request when I came out of surgery was to cover up my leg. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it until I'm ready. I don't want to be forced to see myself legless yet. So about 2 hours later, I had to sit in the freezing cold OR for 2 hours. I finally got rolled back into surgery, and they're like, what song do you want to listen to? Because they always let me play music for the 2 seconds I was awake before they knocked me out. And I was like, I want you to put on Run to the Father. That was my surgery song. So they put on that song, knocked me out. It was cool. So it only took like 30 minutes to cut a leg off, believe it or not. They just saw that thing off and get going. So they cut it off, I woke up, and they rolled me back up to my room. My whole family's there again. And I was telling my parents, I don't want to see it. Don't uncover it. I don't want to look at it. And my dad couldn't help himself. So he went to the end of my bed where I couldn't see, and he lifted up the blanket and looked at it and starts laughing. And I'm like, all right, Dad, you're the reason I'm here, but this is cool. Laugh at it. And so he's giggling, and now I can't help it. I have to look now. So I lift it up, and everyone in the room starts laughing because it's not something you see every day to be laying in a bed legless. And so that was cool. That was my 5th surgery. And then the next day, after I cut my leg off, I'm on the 6th floor, mind you. Tornado warning. Cool. You can see it outside the window, like you can see the clouds moving real quick. I'm like, great, I get to die, this is good. And so we're under tornado warning, and we're like, are you gonna roll us out to the hallway? And they're like, no, just close the blinds, okay? So we shut the blinds, tornado gone, we're safe. And then, like, the warning is getting closer and worse. And a nurse comes in and she's like, well, I think we should probably roll you to the hallway. I hope. So they roll me to the hallway, my bed breaks, so they actually had to like scoot me to the hallway. And I'm sitting in there, and that's kind of when I saw everyone on the trauma floor for the first time. If you don't really know anything about the trauma floor in a hospital, it's like the worst of the worst injuries. So there was a guy that got chopped up by a boat motor, like fell out of a boat, got chopped up. He was there. There were people that were detoxing from like overdoses of drug uses. Like there's some pretty bad cases there. So I'm sitting in the hall looking at all these people, kind of chatting it up across the room about why other people were there. And it kind of hit me for a second that this is not the worst thing that could have happened. Like I really kind of have it easy compared to some people here. Like I was only there for 20 days. There were some people that weren't going to walk out of that hospital. And that was kind of eye-opening for me. And so we began to pray over everyone that was in that hospital with me. I had a neighbor on the other side of my wall. Walls are paper thin. And his name was Virgil. He was really old and he couldn't hear. And he was a poor behaved patient, bless his heart. But the only thing he wanted for dinner was liver and onions. And if you didn't bring him liver and onions, he was going to throw applesauce at you, or he was going to intentionally poop the bed. And yes, that happened at least twice a day. So the nurses loved him, as you can tell. So Virgil was our entertainment for 18 days, and he left 2 days before me. He went to a nursing home, and he told the doctors when he was leaving, he was like, can you just kill me? Because he did not want to go to a nursing home. So I'm like, Virgil, I'm with you, man. But who knows where he is nowadays. Hopefully he's still alive, but he was a cool guy. But he had fallen out of a bed and like broke his spine, broke his neck, broke his tailbone. So he was like all cattywampus and crooked, but he made it. So my final surgery, 3 days after this blind shutting tornado, I went back in for surgery. They closed up my nub, if you will, with my skin, sewed it up, and they're like, well, we had to pull it a little tighter than we wanted, so it might take a couple days longer to heal. And that was the first glimpse I got of never trust a doctor, but it gets worse later. So I'm like, okay, they told me I'd be walking in 2 to 4 months, okay? So I'm like, okay, I'll be walking in 1 month. That was the goal I set for myself. Well, God had other plans. So I go home from the hospital, 1 limb shorter than what I came in with. That was awkward. And I'm going up to the city every 2 weeks to meet my surgeon. He'll check out my healing, pull stitches, pull staples, all that fun, joyous stuff that you don't get to be knocked out for. And so I did that for about 3 months, and I'm like, dude, don't you think it's about time for me to be walking? And he's like, yeah, so you're not healing at all. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell. And I have a giant hole like in my leg, like about that big. And that's what like had to close. And so it closed a little bit, but not much. And he's like, I think we should do a debridement procedure, which is where you just go in, they knock you out, and they literally just like re-cut it open, clean it out, re-sew it shut, and you start the healing process all over. Which I wasn't fully aware that that's what was going to happen, but I was like, whatever. So I did what he said. Surgery number 6 or 7, no pun intended. And after that, I was healing super slow. So I was already 3 months in, and this took 3 more months to heal, good enough for me to get on a leg. So I was super, super frustrated from about month 4 to month 6. I was like, I should be walking right now. I'm struggling mentally super bad because my goal was to be in a leg by August, be playing softball in my district game my senior year. That was my goal. Well, that was not the Lord's goal for me, so we kind of beefed about that for a while. And I just couldn't quite figure out why it was taking so long. But I was going around, I probably had 2 speaking gigs a week, going around to different churches, different youth groups, sharing my story, what the Lord had done in my life. And I slowly realized that this is exactly where I'm meant to be. His timing is perfect, mine is not. I'm just dramatic and not patient. So I kind of had to learn that the hard way. So I finally got on a leg in November, had my first leg. It was about 350 pounds, and it was like lugging a barrel around everywhere I went. I couldn't run, could hardly walk. It was heavy, but I learned how to do it because I wanted to get back out on the field. Well, that leg was never going to be a leg that I was going to be able to get on the field with. So kind of just gave up on that hope and dream. But luckily, my senior year, we won our first district game, which hadn't happened at all since I was in high school. Lost the second round. Super sad, super upset. Softball was over for me. I was going to play in college originally, changed my mind before the wreck. I just knew I wasn't college bound. So softball, down the drain, it's gone. Cool, another thing that I lost. And at the same time, me and the guy I was with for 2 years, we were also going through a breakup. Now, I don't share this detail with everyone, but I'm sharing with you guys because you're at the age where you date someone new every month. No offense. But it happens. I get it. And so throughout my 7 months of healing and learning and growing, it took me about 8 months to be able to walk without crutches or anything. Throughout those 8 months, there was 3 what I call ships of my life that I really had to focus on. Friendships, relationships, and hardships. You're all going to go through them. You're all going to go through relationships, whether that's with a boy or a girl, whether that's with your family and with the Lord. You're all going to go through changes in friendship. High school breaks people up and brings people together. So you're going to meet new friends and lose some friends. That's okay. It happens. And then hardships. Everyone's going to face them. If you haven't already, I bet you probably have. So I'll start with relationships. Whenever you're in a relationship with someone, whether that be with the Lord, a significant other, or family members, you don't just fall in love with a person or with the Lord once. I'm going to use the Lord as an example. You as a person are changing constantly. So the Lord has to love you in every stage that you change in. In the same way, when you're in a relationship with someone, you don't fall in love with them for the first time. As they change, you love who they become, and who they become, and who they become. Who I was at 17 pre-leg loss is not who I am today, not even close. And I had to learn to love myself through those changes, just like the Lord continued to love me, just like my family continued to learn me and love me. So relationships are important. Love yourself, love the people around you, and learn to love people through the changes of life, okay? Number 2, friendships. Friendships are very, very important, especially through hardships. So in the book of Job, Job was a super wealthy man, super faithful man, and Satan told God to tempt him because he thought that the only reason he had faith in the Lord was because he was so rich and so wealthy. So God did exactly that. He stripped him of all of his livestock, all of his family. He was covered in this super bad disease. He was just absolutely miserable. But he never lost his faith in Jesus. And that's important. And his friends were not good friends to him. They came to him during this time, and they questioned him. They doubted his faith. They're like, Job, if God is real, why are you going through this? If God really loves you, why would he do this to you? Not good friends. Find friends that pour into you. Find friends that believe the same thing as you. Find friends that will hold you accountable when you fall short. Find friends that will be with you when you go through hard times. My best friend, okay, pause. Today, you older kids, I don't really know about you younger kids, but I was with the older kids today, and in our Bible studies this morning, we went through a little template of 1 Corinthians love verse. You guys remember that? Love is patient, love is kind. And every time it said love, you replaced love with your own name. Carmen is patient, Carmen is kind, etc., etc. I am so glad we went over that because I was going to bring that up in my speech to you today. You need to use that template in your relationships and in your friendships. If you cannot apply that to your friends or to your relationships, they're not going to be fruitful for your life. They're not going to fill your cup. So, for example, my best friend's name is Olivia. She is patient. She is kind. She does not envy. She does not boast. She is not proud. She keeps no record of wrongs. She doesn't hold it against me. She is truly one of the greatest people I have ever met.